All right, we're going to discuss the third house and the 12th house and how to interpret combinations between the two of them. How can houses combine? There is an obvious way and a less obvious way. The obvious way is via the lords. So, for example, if you have the third lord in the 12th house, the 12th lord in the third house, or the third and the 12th lords joining each other, or the third and the 12th lords mutually aspecting each other, then you have the third and the 12th houses combining by this obvious avenue of their lords. The less obvious way is as a result of the sequence of prominences in the houses. Each house is more or less prominent than the other. So if you have the third house, for example, be your most prominent and the 12th be your next most, then the two will be working together. So that is less obvious and difficult to figure out for yourself. So I have a report that will assess that for you. And you can get that report at my website, victorcara.com. Go to the readings section and order this one, The Houses of Life. It will evaluate the houses in terms of their prominence and positivity and give you this kind of DNA code, which gives you the sequence of the houses. And then you can, looking at that sequence, you can tell which houses are interacting with which others. And the houses that are interacting on the extreme left and right of the code are the very important ones for you. All right, let's get to the topic at hand, which is the third and the 12th. Before we discuss the combination of the third and the 12th house, let's discuss the third and the 12th separately. Then when we're clear what the third represents, what the 12th represents, it'll be a lot easier to make sense out of what they mean when they combine. So the third house is the area of sky which is underground, but it's on the eastern section of the underground area. So it signifies whatever the underground sky signifies, moving towards whatever the eastern sky signifies. So the underground sky signifies your inner feelings and motivations and emotions, and the eastern sky signifies visibility and self. So to make that more concrete for you, which actually is what the third house symbolizes, making things concrete, it's about ability. The third house is all about ability. So, for example, it's the house of skill or talent. What is skill or talent? It's the ability to take an idea or a feeling or a concept and express it successfully in a concrete manner. Or to have a desire or a want on the inside and be able to achieve it, figure out how to achieve it. That's the skill. Also, the third house is the house of strength, because it's forceful or assertive. It's the eastern border of the underground, so it's the way that our feelings become known and visible and real. So it's the ability to express, it's the ability to assert and use force and have strength. Also, it's the house of will, because will is the effect that our thoughts, feelings, etc. have on the tangible world, which is the east. The thoughts and feelings are the underground, and the east is the tangible world. The third house, which is on the east border of the underground, is about our ability to affect the tangible world with our thoughts and feelings and desires. So it's our willpower, it's our determination, discipline, bravery, etc. The third house also is about our desires themselves. It's not just our feelings in the fourth house, but specifically our feelings towards ourself. So in other words, what we want for ourselves. That's why it's the house of passion. What I want, lust, ambition. It's also therefore the house of individuality, because it's I-focused. What I want, what is good for me. So it's an independent house. It shows our ability to be independent, our proclivity to be independent, our individuality or uniqueness. And hence, it's a competitive house, not a cooperative house. So it will show our strength in contest, our ability to compete, our willingness to compete, our need to compete. It's therefore very important in games and athletics, sports, or warfare. It's also about the people with whom we compete. So it's not about our superiors or people who are junior to us. It's about our equals, because equals are the people we compete with. So it's the house for siblings, peers, colleagues, etc. That's the third house. Now let's do a similar analysis for the 12th. The 12th house is above the eastern horizon. That's what it is in the sky. It's the area of the sky that's above the eastern horizon, and that's why it symbolizes what it symbolizes. Since it's above the eastern horizon, it is the area of sky that has the wind and the clouds and the rain that erode the horizon below it. So it signifies everything that erodes the east. So one thing that means, since the east means beginning, the sun rises in the east. So the 12th house, which is eroding beginnings, it's going to signify things which are anti-beginning. So it's the house of subtraction or reduction. It's not about things coming into being, which is an Eastern theme, but it's about things being taken out of being. Therefore, it's the house of loss. Things are being removed. Or financially speaking, it's the house of expense. It's actually a very important house for finance because it's about how we spend money. It's not just about how we spend money, it's about how we spend energy. So it's also the house of drain or fatigue or expiration, and therefore it has a lot to do with death. And it's the house that signifies all the agents which do all this subtraction and draining on us. So you basically call it the house of detractors or subtractors. So some people identify it as the house of enemies, because enemies tend to do that. They tend to subtract from your glory, they tend to subtract from your energy, they tend to subtract from your resources. On the other hand, the East is not just about beginnings, but it's about visibility. The sun is rising there. It's not really beginning, it's becoming visible. And so the 12th house, being the eroder of the East, is going to be the house of all things which are anti-visibility. So it's a house for non-material things, non-physical things, things which are not really tangible and visible and perceivable. So it's a very spiritual place. Also, this is a house for unreal things, things which don't have to have a physical component. So it's a house for dreams, it's a house for fantasy. You can extend it to mean hallucination, fiction. It's a house of things which you cannot see. So it's a house of unknowns. It's another reason why it's pretty spiritual, but it's also the main reason why it has to do with things that are foreign to you, things that are alien, things that are in the other country you can't see and you don't know about. And finally, non-visibility means not getting up on a stage, not getting in front of people, not getting in front of the camera. So it has to do with that kind of stuff too. Humility, isolation from others, quietude. Now that we're clear what the third house represents and what the 12th house represents, we can talk about what they signify when they combine with each other. So the first thing to think about is that the third is the house of strength, but the 12th is the house of fatigue or drain. So this is a clash in the symbolism, and it's not going to produce easy results, therefore. So people with third and 12th house combinations, they have to watch their energy management. They'll tend to expend energy abruptly on the present moment and not maintain for long term. This will also affect the way that they spend money. They will tend to make big purchases unnecessarily. Another implication of this strength versus fatigue thing is in the realm of health. It leads to metabolism disorders. Metabolism is the way that we get energy. And another interesting thing related to this, males, which are third housey, become detractors, which is 12th house, right? Then by default, the female becomes more of a source of prosperity. So for people with this combination, male figures tend to be a little bit troubling, and female figures tend to be easier to deal with or more prosperous to deal with. Another thing about the third house is it's a house for competition, but the 12th house is the house for humility. You don't really compete well when you're humble. So here is a clash again. The upshot of it will affect the people that we compete with, or the peers. So it's going to have an effect upon the friends. The effect is that we have difficulty dealing with friends. That specifics of the difficulty is envy. A feeling of envy arises because we're not entirely seeing them as friends, we're seeing them as competitors. Another thing about the third house is it's the house for ambition, but the 12th is the house for reduction. That doesn't go well either, because ambition means increasing things that you want, and 12th house reduction means getting rid of things. So the implication here is the people have a desire for minimization, which is 12th housey, that's at odds with the desires for growth or prosperity, which is third house. So in other words, they may have a lot of material ambitions that make it impossible for them to follow moral or spiritual paths, or vice versa. They may have a lot of moral ideals and spiritual ideals that make it impossible for them to fulfill their material ambitions. But it's not that they don't care. They still have material ambitions, or they still have spiritual aspirations. Another issue, the fourth issue, the final issue that is important with the third and the 12th house, is that the third is the house of lust, which is material desire, and the 12th is the house for spirituality, non-material things. So this is similar to the ambition and reduction thing. And again, you'll have a bipolar effect here. The people will be, they'll tend to be an extreme, actually, of either being non-lusty or non-spirituality, right? Or in other words, they'll be extremely spiritual or extremely lusty, or can oscillate between the two in different situations or at different times. So I'll give you a couple of names of people that are in my small file that have this combination of 3 and 12. Donald Trump. That's a very good example of extreme materialism, yet he doesn't not care about his moral profile, but he's not really able to make it real. Also, difficulty with friends, envy, and a lot of expenses. So that's Trump. Then another group are Candy Bar, Angelina Jolie, and Oprah Winfrey. Well, Candy Bar, you can see also like extreme lusty, right? Or extreme worldly. With Angelina Jolie, you can also see that kind of push and pull between worldly and spiritual. And with Oprah Winfrey, actually with all three of these women, especially with Oprah Winfrey, you can see that feminine things are good. But like talking, discussing. With all three of these women, actually, you can see that femininity is their source of fortune. And then two more people, Richard Ramirez and David Berkowitz. So again, you can see here how there's difficulty with friends, to put it mildly, how there's no long-term thought. Either it's all short-term. They have negative desires, right? That's the ambition and reduction thing really coming out. They have desires, strong desires to destroy, to reduce. So this is the nature of the third and the 12th house when it combines. You want to, of course, see how it deals with, how it interacts with the rest of your chart. I mean, David Berkowitz is certainly quite different from Oprah Winfrey, who's certainly quite different from Candy Bar, who's certainly quite different from Donald Trump. And the reason is that they all have different other things in their chart besides having the third and the 12th house combined. So if you have third and 12th house combined, don't forget the rest of your chart. you may want to actually pick up my overview of your whole chart, the guided tour of your birth chart. Or if you just want to see what your house sequences are and what that means, you can go and pick up the Houses of Life report as well. Thank you very much for watching the video, and please like it, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.